everything, goods and services, capital expenditure, everything, you know. And so we've been faced with something like that before. What did we do? We called the Century Forum. You remember Century Forum? PV Obing was very active in that. We wanted to achieve consensus behind our economic program. So we invited all the stakeholders. Everybody was there. The only people who refused to attend were the New Patriotic Party. They actually issued a caveat that any of their members who attended will be sanctioned severely. And so some of them had accepted to come, but at the last minute, because of the party sanction, I mean, how unpatriotic can you be? So they refused to come. But we held the Century Forum. Out of the Century Forum came our homegrown fiscal consolidation policy. And eventually that became the basis for our negotiations with the IMF, which led to the program that we went into. Kwesi, by the time we left office in 2016, I'll tell you this, most Ghanaians don't know, we financed the budget from our own revenues. We didn't borrow one CD from the central bank. The first time in Ghana's history. Everything that we financed the budget with in 2016, we did zero central bank financing. This had put the economy on a platform where, I mean, if the incoming administration and Nado's administration had taken over with the additional oil revenues and things, we would have just continued fiscal consolidation with growth. And you would have felt the prosperity within the system. Instead, they jettisoned everything and decided to go on their own track. This finance minister, you know what he's interested in? All he's interested in is going on the bond market and borrowing money, because he benefits from it indirectly. His company is at the bottom of borrowing all these euro bonds. He's borrowed $9 billion from the bond market in 4 years. And every bond he floats, Data Bank makes money out of it through proxies and other things, you know. And so this is clearly conflict of interest. The president knows about this, you know, and that's why he says, I'm too old to be corrupt. I'm not going to steal your money, because he knew his relatives would steal the money for him. And that's exactly what's happening. You know, he can go to a plush retirement because of Oyata and Gabi and everybody will look after him. Bumpty and Co will all look after him, you know. And so, yes, we have a broken economy, but it's time for the person who broke it to leave so that somebody can come and fix it.
Now, sir, you used some methods to deal with similar situation when you came to power. Are those methods still usable? And if they're not, how do you intend to tackle this huge monumental economic problems that face us?
Kwesi, it's like your own family budget and your own family economy. Yourself and my sweetheart and the children, you form an economic unit. When you're highly indebted and your income is low, what do? One, you cut expenditure and then you reprofile your debt so that it gives you a little more breathing space to be able to deal with the debt. By the time we end this year, our debt to GDP will be 80%. And let me explain that to your viewers. If Kwesi is worth, let's say, 100,000 Ghana cedis, you're worth 100,000 Ghana cedis, but your debt as a percentage of it means your building, your car, your house, your income that you make from your work, everything is 100,000 Ghana cedis a year. And yet your debt as a percentage of your total worth is 80%. It means you are broke. It means you have just 20% to maneuver with, because 80% of your total value is mortgaged in debt. And so, one, you need to reprofile your debt so that you get some breathing space to be able to do the investments that are necessary to get out of it. Now, one of the things that we could do to keep social and economic infrastructure still going is to use the new style of borrowing that we introduced. That is to borrow on a certain collateralized basis. For instance, we set up the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. Now that fund was to take a percentage of VAT and a percentage of oil revenues, and it was going to become the investment vehicle for developing social and economic infrastructure. So we put seed money of 270 million in that fund, and there were supposed to be inflows there. And based on that collateralization, we could borrow money in order to do the critical developmental projects that we needed. That was a new idea that came. Terminal 3. We did it off the balance sheet of Ghana Airport Company. We used to take 60% of their airport passenger levy. And so I said, build us a new terminal. And they said, oh, okay, we can build you a new terminal, but give us our passenger levy, and we'll use it to collateralize and build a new terminal. And they did. Gapoha. They said, look, this port is congested, we need a new port. It says, what do we do? It says, okay, see your partners, Meridian Port Services, and take the debt on your collective balance sheets and build a new port. Today we have a brand new port, the most efficient in the whole of West Africa. You know, so there are ways of doing things, you know, that we are time tested. We have come out of this kind of hole before, and we have the people who can be able to work to get us out of this hellhole. But the first thing is to stop those who are doing damage to the economy. And then when you have stopped them from wrecking the economy further, then you can rescue the economy. This is a rescue mission. You know, Ghana is going in the wrong direction. Nana Akufo-Addo, with all the promise and the expectations that people had, has been a very sad disappointment. You know, and I find it very callous of them to say they fulfilled all their promises. They say, so we fulfilled our promises to the people. Every district I've gone to asks, do you have any of the factories here? It says, no, we don't have anything. You know, has there been any development? What development has taken place in your district over the last 4 years? It says nothing. It says the electrification you were doing, they've discontinued it. You build our road halfway, where you got to 4 years now, the road has been abandoned. I mean, these are a litany of stories all over. And yet, you know, the thing about MPP is they are good at talk. A lot of talk, plenty talk, but no action. You know, and so if you follow their propaganda and their talk, you think that Ghana is some rosy paradise. But we're sinking lower and lower. That survey was done recently, and the majority of Ghanaians said they feel worse off today than they were in 2016. And that is a fact. You know, cost of living has gone up, incomes have gone down. If you go to the yam area, the price of the yam market has collapsed, and so the price of yam, you know, is not giving an economic rate of return to the farmers. And so the fear is that if we don't do something about it, a time will come the farmers cannot even just, you know, continue the supply of yams to the market.
Well, viewers and listeners, at this point we'd like to take a short break. We are in conversation with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, former president and presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. And this interview is coming to you live in the Marriott Hotel in Tamale. We're going to take a short break. And when we come after the break, sir, I'd like to find out from you how you evaluate the energy sector. It does appear to be collapsing. Short break.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Pratt. Still, the only TV show with a hat.
Morning is an important time of the day because how you spend your morning can often tell you what kind of day you're going to have. I want you to have a great day. So start your day with me because I can guarantee a great show every weekday on Good Morning Africa right here on Pan-African Television. I will be serving some inspiration, news, business, health, newspaper review, music, and so much more. Join me, Kwame Owusu Danso, on Good Morning Africa on Pan-African Television. Let's have a truly African morning. Medasi.
The world has changed. Now the new normal demands that countries look within to develop their capacities and make strides in getting their economies back on track. In all of this, diplomacy is now more than ever the bridge linking these nations as they forge ahead. In season 2 of Diplomatic Affairs, complex issues will be explained as I sit with global change makers to discuss the new phases of bilateral and multilateral relations between Ghana and its development partners. I will also pique your interest on the many enterprises that are forces to reckon with in their own rights. My name is Harriet Nati, and this is Diplomatic Affairs.
You know the jobs we create? Over 2 million jobs. It not be easy.
Yeah! Lies! You create all these jobs over there, we still the suffer no.
Massa. You know here of NAPCO?
You pa, what they try talk? You they set permanent job, you say NAPCO.
You see, NAPCO be temporal. You guys no think round proper. The beneficiaries go lose them a job, can't join the unemployed soon.
Muff. How that one go feel happen self?
Even your NAPCO no, John Mahama promise say he go fix am by making the beneficiaries permanent public sector workers.
That be visionary.
Yes! The visionary promises the big one. Ejumapa. And the Ejumapa, 1 million permanent jobs with decent wages could be created over the next 4 years. That'll be 250,000 jobs per year.
Ejumapa, you do all.
Thank you.
That be too ambitious. How that one go feel happen self?
Thank you for the word so sweet. John Mahama projects say go stimulate the private sector, where go give them incentives so say they go free employ child people. He say medium-sized businesses no go pay corporate income tax for 2 years. Then our income tax also you go reduce them from 25% to 15%. So say they go fee expand. Small businesses self no go pay corporate income tax, where you go reduce VAT by 5%. Hey, what the freak me be saying? Youth startup business no go pay tax for 2 years.
If you can say it be easy, like it be easy and we will not do it.
If you no fit do, carry down your chair no go. Make your mama come, they can't show you. The policies you did the Jumapa under, See, when the raw materials like cocoa, cashew, and gold, we go process them for the country inside. This go help create jobs for our people, where some go generate income, give the country. John Mahama, again, go scrap import duty where the commercial vehicles, then vehicles for industrial and agricultural purposes stop. You go fit.
Hey, set. But my guy, what day inside give we away one job for the government sector?
Oh, master, that one be bonus. See, whether you want go police or soldier or prison or GES or local government or you no get problem. You there inside.
Opana, what you say?
You no get anything to.
Massa, what did the Jumapa inside? For we will not get employable skills.
Oh, no worries, bro. The free TVET at the secondary and technical universities plus the National Apprenticeship Program will sort you out. Under the National Apprenticeship Program, you will get a chance to train in any craft of your choice for free, where you go get some allowance as you train.
Oh, what a wow!
Oh yes, not only that, you will get free toolkits to set up your own business once you play it. Hey, I win this agreement.
Hey, Ejumapa! You do
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
Master, you heard the story of the student who copied his friend in an exam and even copied his friend's name. I hope say Yanum no could copy the NDC flag.
Hey boy, make we talk. The NDC's People's Manifesto. It be top one. See, the boy Yano.
Once they hit them hard, be the legalization and the regulation of Okada. No, Yanum conf. Them say them start consultation long time to legalize her. Then we hear say Baumia say he go buy car for each Okada rider. Funny.
They make beans, I tell you. Don't go fit. Maza, atas catch them.
What the funny be that? Them think say we all fool, so we go fall for the matrix. So them start they cut short for project left and right. Ghanaians be smarter than that. Them go lose bad.
See, bro, you know say me as a day, me now they do my hustles 1 and 2, they get money, they take settle my school fees. But right now, Mahama say chemupe, which means the NDC Mahama-led government will pay 50% of school fees for all tertiary students in the universities, polytechnics, college of education, nursing training schools, and so on.
Charlie, John Mahama be visionary. Chempe go ease pressure for parents and students. Them at all pound.
Well, hello and welcome back to this very special interview with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. This interview is coming to you from the Marian Hotel in Tamale, and we are rebroadcasting it on many other radio stations and television stations. And just before we went on the break, I asked His Excellency to be reflecting on the energy sector. The energy sector appears to be in deep crisis. It is riddled with debts. Independent power producers are owed more than $1 billion. Electricity Company of Ghana is owned heavily. Volta River Authority is in crisis. Are you not worried that on your assumption of power, the crisis in the energy sector could cripple the national economy even more?
It could. And the energy sector has been the Achilles heel of this economy for a long time. And that was because of several factors, both in terms of power production and in terms of supply of petroleum products. And so if you remember, in the past, the Toll Debt Recovery Levy was introduced to try and resolve issues in the energy sector. Now, when we came into office, we had two problems, two situations. One, we had a generational deficit. Ghana was using close to 3,000 megawatts, 2,700, 2,800 at peak hours. And we could put into the system, maybe about 2,300 megawatts. So there was a deficit of about 500 megawatts. And that's what led to doomsday and power rationing. By end of 2015, we had brought in the car power ship, and then we had also brought in the Ameri plants. The two combined, generation plants covered the deficit. And so by beginning of 2016, there was no power rationing, and I'm going to say that for a fact. In 2016, there was no power rationing in Ghana. We suspended power rationing, so everybody was getting full power. If anybody's lights went off, it was due to an outage, either a transformer blowout or a line drop or something. So 2016, there was no doomsday. The only thing left was the debt and fueling the power plants. And so, you know what we did? We resolved that problem by introducing the Energy Sector Levy Act, ESLA. Now, ESLA was tax on petroleum products, which was geared to be channeled towards defraying and liquidating the legacy debts of the power sector. And so, if you remember, when we introduced it, Nana Akufo-Addo and MPP said I was the most wicked president in history, and that I was overtaxing Ghanaians and so on and so forth. And that when they came into office, they were going to abolish ESLA. You remember that?
Yes.
Today, but for ESLA, we'll be even in worse trouble. So what we did was, once we established ESLA, we got the banks to whom we owed, all the power sector debts. And these banks were led by Stanbic. It was a consortium. And so we went with them, we cut off the penal interest and things, we renegotiated the debts, and we all agreed that this was the debts. And so we said, okay, we're going to put the ESLA funds into an escrow to be handled by Stanbic. And as the funds come in, Stanbic will distribute the money proportionately to all the creditors. Everybody agreed. And then we put this arrangement in place. We left office. Because the president's cousin likes going on the capital market, he rubbished our arrangements. and decided that no, he was going to create a new arrangement. So he created ESLA into a special purpose vehicle, like a limited liability company. And he mortgaged and floated ESLA. So he's mortgaged ESLA for all the revenues in ESLA have been mortgaged for like the next 15 years. And yet, instead of using the money for the purposes, there was a time where they used ESLA proceeds to pay pensions. Complete misuse of what the ESLA funds were meant for. And so instead of using ESLA to pay down the debt, they have kept escalating the debt. And then what compounded it was they went and brought this strange creature called PDS, which was something that I negotiated, the Millennium Challenge Compact. And it was supposed to have private sector participation in distribution of electricity. We didn't finish the negotiations before we left. When they came, they saw an avenue to make money for the family. You can hear Gabby's voice, you can hear Bumpty's voice, clearly negotiating shareholding in PDS. I don't know, there's something with Ghana. We're either too shocked by the corruption of the Akufo-Addo administration that nothing shocks us anymore. So now when huge magnitude of corruption happens, people just don't have the energy to even talk about it again, you know. But they went and brought this strange creature called PDS. PDS has taken some of electricity companies' revenues, more than 200 million, and put it in a commercial bank here, and that money is earning interest. And we need to ask them, who is the interest going to? And meanwhile, what this government has done is they've encouraged PDS to sue government for wrongfully terminating their contract. But it's the same president's family behind it suing government. The shareholders, they've encouraged them to sue government. And in the meantime, they kept that money there, knowing that they would get a court or something to rule against government, and then they can go back and take that money and share it. You see, there's a lot that is happening. This government has mismanaged the energy sector so badly. Like we said, the own independent power producers alone, 1.5 billion. We were lifting the capacity of the transmission cable that goes to Burkina Faso. Gridco was working on it. We're elevating it to 161 so that kVA, so that we could easily evacuate excess electricity to Burkina Faso. Since they came, that project has stopped. If that project had been completed, we can supply Burkina Faso power at a lower cost than they can generate it from fossil fuels. And so we would have started earning some foreign currency from electricity export. That was the design of the whole thing. We wanted to integrate our power transmission system with Nigeria so that we could evacuate some extra power to assist Nigeria in terms of power generation. They haven't followed anything like that. We're going to set up the electricity market where every country can put its excess electricity on an auction, and then people can buy, I need 100 megawatts or I need 50 megawatts a day, you know, at this price. All those things have just collapsed completely. The tragedy of this administration will be seen after they leave office. It's like a person who has soiled himself and is sitting in it. He cannot get up for fear that people will see he has soiled himself. But it's only when he's forced to get up that people will see the extent of the damage that has been done to this economy. The energy sector surely is a danger to the economy, but we fixed it before, and we'll fix it again. We'll negotiate with the power producers, we'll negotiate with the creditors, we'll put in a system that gives them confidence that they will get their money. And once you do that, people are prepared to be reasonable.
But the independent power producers have already started threatening
yes.
that they will shut down their plants.
Yeah, because they know that Oforiatta is joking with them. You understand? I mean, when it's overdue, he'll just go find a little something and throw it at them, and then just use it to keep them quiet. You know, when they agitate again, he'll find some 100 million and give to them so that they'll be quiet. But then the debt continues to accumulate. That's what he's doing. The last Eurobond he undertook, the 3 billion. I know that at least $1 billion of it was supposed to be committed to paying down the power sector debts, and we need to ask him, what has he done with that money? If he had paid, you know, the independent power producers, they wouldn't be making the noise that they are making currently. So I'm sure that he's used it for other purposes.
The banking sector report has had many difficulties. You have the Ghanaian share and the banking market is actually shrunk and so on. But there are so many people on the streets agitating to be paid their deposits and investments and so on. January 7th, 2021, Excellency John Dramani Mahama is in power. How do you propose to deal with this particular situation? First of all, how do you propose to deal with the situation where the indigenous banking sector is shrinking? And how do you deal with the depositors and investors who have lost their money?
I have stated clearly, and we've put it in our manifesto, that we're going to restore the indigenous investment in the financial sector. The financial sector is such a critical strategic sector that you cannot have it foreign dominated in your country. You must have indigenous investment in that sector. And so we set out deliberately to encourage Ghanaians to go into banking and into other financial institutions. And so, I mean, several Ghanaians set up banks, others set up savings and loans companies, and there were microfinance companies. Nobody denies that there were some liquidity problems, but some of those liquidity problems were caused by government itself, because people had gone to take loans from the banks and the microfinance companies, and they had made supplies to government, and government legitimately owed them, you know, those monies for work done. Then a new government comes in. It's like there's been a coup d'etat, and they say everybody stop work and we won't pay you until we have vetted your payments and all that. And for 4 years there are people who have not been paid. I spoke to a contractor 3 days ago. He has 3 or 4 certificates since 2016 waiting to be paid. He hasn't been paid anything, and so he stopped work. He's laid off his workers. Recently, now the elections are coming, they've asked him to go on some road that he was working on. They say, oh, you should show presence because of the elections. And he says, how am I going to show presence? You owe me, you haven't paid me. Where am I going to find money, get my operators back, put diesel in this thing, go and then start working on the road? And so he's not been able to mobilize to go on the road. But that's the history of this administration. So they were partially responsible for the collapse of the banks, because their liability to some of these contractors, I understand, in total came up to about 5.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now I think that if government had paid its liability and the contractors had paid 5.7 billion into the banking sector, it would have collapsed. They would have had enough liquidity to stay afloat. Now the intent to kill them was clear, because one, we won't pay the contractors who owe you. We say that has nothing to do with you. It's a contract between us and our suppliers. Whatever contract you have with this one, collateralize it, take their collateral or do whatever. Then at the same time, you tell the banks, increase your capital reserve to 400 million from 80 million. And so if by this date you don't reach that thing, we're going to close you down. And the Bank of Ghana keeps threatening them. And so you know what happens. But if these banks are in danger of closing, then I'm not going to put my money there. And even the little money I have, let me go and take my thing out. So long before the banks closed, everybody who came into the bank was coming to take money, not coming to deposit. And so they had already sealed the fate of those institutions. Now, experts estimate that we needed 9 billion Ghana cedis to bail out those financial institutions. Weed some out, of course, somewhere in a very bad state, so you could have weeded them out. But you needed about 9 billion to save the financial sector. I mean, if Ghana were your company, Kwesi, 9 billion you needed to do a bailout and keep them afloat. You refused and you collapsed them, and you guaranteed depositors funds. Now you've ended up with a debt of 22 billion. I mean, if Ghana were your company, would you leave a liability of 9 billion and go and embrace a liability of 22 billion? And so that's the situation in which this government finds itself. Now, when I said that, look, these are Ghanaian savings. I mean, some people have saved to put money there, and the interest was what was keeping them going. They're on retirement, that's their only source of income. Others too, that's their capital that was in there. And so because of that, their companies are collapsing. So I said, look, if I get elected, I'll pay in full what we owe them. And we had a simple strategy to do that. We're going to pay them a certain portion of their deposits. What government was doing was giving them paper bonds at 0 interest for 5 years. So you have to sit for 5 years, 0 interest, before you are able to retrieve your money. And so what we're going to do was we're going to give them paper bonds, yeah, but we're going to make the bonds marketable by putting an interest rate on the bonds. And so if somebody couldn't wait for 5 years, he could go to a bank and say, look, you take this paper, discount it for me and give me this money so that I can go about my business. The bank adds it to their assets. And so in the bank's books, they have the assets and they can wait and collect it after 5 years with the interest. That's what we're going to do. Very simple in economics. I sat with my team, we did the analysis, and we came out with that solution. And that's why we said we'll pay them back in full, because they could trade their paper and get their money back, you know. But when I said it, they panicked and said, oh, okay, we'll pay you cash in full. Now they are struggling to pay the cash in full.
But where are they going to find the cash?
That's the problem. And you see, the funny thing is, especially when it comes to the fund management companies, some of the money stuck in the fund management companies belong to financial institutions. And so, for instance, if there was a financial institution, let's say Mahama Savings and Loans, or Mahama Microfinance, or Mahama something, and Kwesi, you came and gave me your money. I gave it to you I took it and promised you a certain interest rate, and then I went and put it in the fund management for a higher interest rate, so I made a margin. So all my customers, you know, are not known by the fund management company. They will see Mahama Savings and Loans. So I'm like one customer. So if you come and say, oh, we'll pay you 50,000 Ghana. Meanwhile, I have about 2 million Ghana CD that belong to a host of people. If you pay me that 50,000 Ghana, how am I going to share it to all those customers? How much is each of them going to get? You see the difficulty they found themselves in. And that has been the issue. And so we have a solution for it, and we will pay. They say they are paying, and so at the end of it, we'll make an assessment and see who have not been paid, you know, and then we'll make an assessment of what is left to be done. There's also the vexed question of men's gold. With men's gold, it's a different kettle of fish from the savings and loans company. But the point is, they are Ghanaians, and it was the lack of our proper oversight that led to the men's gold problem. Because if it had been nipped in the bud early, the kind of losses people have made would not have been made. Why I have not made a definite issue on men's gold is because I did not know the quantum of money involved. My understanding is that it's about $15 to $20 million. That's what I'm hearing, about $15 to $20 million. And apart from that, you also need to strip off the interest people are expecting and what their principal was. And so if you get a hold of the books, then you'll be able to tell what the magnitude of the debt is. But aside from that, I can't understand why in heaven, I mean, this government is giving a free pass to those who perpetrated this fraud. One, you must be going after them. One, you must be locating their properties. You must be liquidating those properties and seeing how much you get from there. And then as a government that is caring, you look to see how you can alleviate the plight of these people. And that's why I told the men's gold people that we as a government will pursue the retrieval of their monies, and will also take steps to alleviate the suffering that they are going through. It might be governments, you know, helping to pay off the principal deposit, probably not the fantastic interest that people are expecting. But first, we need to win power, get a hold of the books of men's gold, go through it, establish properly the list of victims, and then see what everybody was owed, what the principal deposit was, and all that. And then after that, go after the perpetrators, retrieve as much money as we can, and then if government has to chip in to alleviate their plight, we'll do so. Because these are Ghanaians, you know, and I mean, I've met some of them. They are in a very dire situation. I have a few friends and others who put their money in there and they lost everything, you know. And so we don't need to treat them like, you know, there are some foolish people who just, you know, were greedy. That's what the finance minister has tried to do. Said it's their greed that led them to that. But government has a responsibility to protect its citizens from being taken advantage of like that.
Now, sir, there have been many deals, and there are many. PDS included, Japan included. There have been suggestions of criminality and suspected criminality and so on. You're back to power. What are you going to do about all of these deals for which there is or there have been suspicion of criminality, fraud, and so on? What are you going to do?
I think that what we should do is we should take away the brush of politics out of the fight against corruption. And so I, as a person, will not take a personal interest in trying to prosecute or persecute people who have been involved in this corruption. What we need to do is to strengthen the anti-corruption institutions and let them deal with it. And so, for instance, Office of the Special Prosecutor, Economic and Organized Crime Office, Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, we have a lot of anti-corruption institutions. Let Attorney General's department, let them look at every case, do proper investigations into the case, and if people need to be prosecuted, let it happen without it being seen like you're politically driving that process of trying to put people in jail. I'm not interested in putting anybody in jail, but when I become president, the law is going to take its course. Justice will be done. The anti-corruption institutions will be left free to do their investigations and prosecute anybody who is liable, no matter who they are. I think that, like I was saying, Ghanaians have become numb to corruption under this government. I mean, the scandals are so many, and you see the problem is that they are all close to the president. These are relatives and others, and that's why when we talk about nepotism, that is one of the problems. Because if the finance minister were not your cousin, I'm sure that finance minister would have been sacked long ago. But he finds it difficult to sack his cousin. If somebody else was not his relative, that person would have been sacked long ago. But when you fill it with your relatives, 50 something and counting, when they indulge in this kind of criminality, you find it difficult to take action against them. And so, I mean, he said he would not do family and friends government, as if I was doing a family and friends government. I had no members of my family in my government, but somehow they developed the mantra. You see some of the propaganda they do, and yet it sunk in people's minds that I was running a family and friends government just because MPP kept repeating it, like they did the incompetent tag and so on and so forth. And I mean, he turned around to do worse. I wouldn't even say worse because I didn't do family and friends. He rather introduced nepotism. Actually, this is the most nepotistic government in I'll say in the history of Ghana, not even in the history of the Fourth Republic.
Now, sir, you've been traveling through the region, and the state of insecurity is frightening. You can't drive from Tamale to Wa at night without armed police escort and so on. What would you do about this general state of insecurity? It's not just about armed robbery. There are all these unexplained killings, Ahmed Swari and so on. What are you going to do about the state of insecurity?
Kwesi, I'm happy you raised this because it's something that the media has not been talking about, especially in this part of the country. One of the major issues affecting people is insecurity and armed robbery. There is an unspoken curfew in the northern part of the country. We've been driving around, campaigning, and we get back late at night. We can go for hours without meeting one single vehicle. Especially after 9 o'clock, you won't meet a single vehicle till about dawn. And so, even though we live in a democracy, we have a self-imposed curfew because armed robbery is on the rampage. Now, instead of this government has demoralized the security services, and the morale of our police officers is very low. Promotions have been politicized. People are not put in places on merit. They are infiltrating the police service with all these their thugs and vigilantes, and there's even a suspicion that some of them are the ones engaged in some of these robberies. And so, I mean, this government has created a very unsafe situation for Ghanaians. There are some communities on every market day, and the armed robbers know the market days. On every market day, they go and wait for them. After they finish market and they are coming home, then they stop them and take everything from them. Just ask any community here, and they'll tell you that you don't go out after a certain time in the night. Now the robbers too realize that people are not coming out in the night, so they've shifted their operation to daytime. You heard about a month ago on the Bolga Road. Daytime, the robbers came out and they robbed people. So they said, if you come out in the night, then we'll come and get you in the daytime. You know, this government is not serious about safety and security. But you know, NDC, I mean, safety and security is one of our, strong points. Because we know how to do it. We know how to promote on merit. We know how to put the right people in the right places. We know how to equip the police and the armed forces with the logistics to do the fight against crime. When we were in office, we had the joint anti-armed robbery patrols. That is military and police. And they patrolled all the places that were prone to armed robbery, and they made them safe. People could go about their duties. When I was president, I used to go on the road at midnight and you see cars coming and going. Now you won't find any cars, at night. And so that's one of the things we're going to deal with. We're going to give the police and the military, restore the joint military police anti-armed robbery squad, give them the bulletproof vests, the helmets, give them the light armored vehicles, give them the weapons to be able to fight the armed robbery menace. This government is giving those weapons and the bulletproof vests and things to their vigilantes. And so you see vigilantes in all kinds of military fatigues wearing bulletproof vests. That bulletproof vest should be given to a soldier or to a policeman. And you see the sorry sight of how low our morale is. During the registration exercise, some guy in Mufti was brandishing a pistol. A police officer was sitting and he was threatening the police officer and pointing the pistol at him. I mean, a police officer in uniform was being threatened by some unknown person, and when you accost them, they'll flash a national security card. When the national security become an operational wing of the security service, it's a coordinating wing. National security personnel don't go around with AK-47s and pistols. And the sorry thing about that video I saw was there were soldiers there and police there. And instead of arresting this guy and beating the hell out of him, they were begging him and asking him to calm down, calm down. Somebody was threatening your fellow police officer. So morale is so low. Recently there was the incident of a police pickup with new patriotic party supporters in it. Have you heard anything about it again? I raised it personally. The IGP said there was going to be an investigation. How many months do you investigate something like this? I mean, the public should have been told, look, the officer did wrong, he's been sanctioned or something, and then everybody knows that. But in discipline, discipline has broken down. And so everybody does whatever they want and they get away with it. And so that's the net effect of what you get. But we're going to stamp out, this insecurity. We're going to stamp out armed robbery and make Ghana safe again.
Now, sir, will you accept the results of the elections no matter who wins?
Everybody knows me. I am a committed Democrat, and in all situations I've acted, legally and legitimately. And when I have lost an election, I have readily conceded if I thought the processes were transparent, free and fair. In 2016, there were some flaws in the election. Kwesi, up till today, the Electoral Commission cannot gazette the polling station results. They've gazetted the presidential results, but you need to gazette the polling station results so that we can add up the gazetted polling station results, because that will mean that those are the certified results, and then we'll compare it with the results of the presidential election. So they go about banding, we beat him by 1 million votes, we beat him by 1 million votes, but they can't gazette the polling station results because that will show exactly what happened at the polling station. So today it has not been done. I mean, one could stand on that basis and condemn the election, and there were a few things that happened, but I couldn't keep the nation on tenterhooks. And so by 2-3 days, after the election, we were still waiting for the results because they had hacked the EC's electronic transmission system and brought it down, and so they had to do all the results transmission manually. I wrote a letter to Jean Mensa and I told her that we were told by the EC that its website was hacked and that the electronic transmission had been hacked, and so the EC asked its officers to do the transmission manually, the tallying manually and transmit manually. I said, can you investigate? Let's find out what happened so that it serves as a guide to the future. She never responded to me. So today as we sit, we don't know what happened to the electronic transmission system. We don't know whether that's going to happen again. You hear rumors that they've brought Israelis, MPP has brought Israelis into town. You saw they published the faces of some people. Recently we hear some Australians are in town and what, all meant to hack into the EC system and things. If we had done a thorough investigation, with this new system we brought, we would have tested the firewalls and things to make sure that you cannot get the system hacked. But we didn't do it. So we're going again blind into this election. I've already heard the EC say that they will they will tally manually and transmit manually. And I thought that was okay, it's fine, because we'll have our agents at all the points where the tallying is taking place. Then the EC comes out again and says, we're going to publish the results within 24 hours. You cannot publish results within 24 hours if you're going to declare the results on manual transmission. You know what takes, I've been in collation rooms before, and I know what takes place with collation, and there can even be the possibility of recounts, people asking for a recount, you understand? So you cannot come and say, within 24 hours you intend to announce the results. What are you in a rush for? Is there something we don't know? And we've had intelligence that they want to declare some results very quickly, start jubilating, and then that's all. And then if we protest, they say go to court. That's what we're hearing. And from what the EC guy said, he should be calm. We're not declaring any results. We're not rushing to declare any results just to achieve a 24-hour limit. The law states the period in which the results should be transmitted, and that should be declared, and that is what we must abide by. They say we're going to do manual transmission. We're going to be in the collation centers, and now they've added another tier of collation, because they'll collate at the constituency level, and the tally sheets, after they have been signed, will be sent to the regional collation centers, and there again they will be retallied before the final result is transmitted to the EC. And so you can't come and say within 24 hours you intend to declare a winner of elections. The parliamentary is okay, because the parliamentary, the winners are declared at the constituency level, and so there, as soon as they finish their tallying, they announce who has won, and then they start jubilating. But the presidential goes through that process and eventually ends up in the EC strong room, and our people will be there, and the tally will be done there, and then finally somebody will be declared a winner. The process leading up to the elections have been flawed in many ways. The EC itself has breached its legal rules so many times. As I sit with you, they said 30,000 names were expunged from the register. Those whose names have been expunged, we don't know. Somebody's gone to court to ask them to publish it. Why should we be forced to publish the names of people whose names have been expunged from the register and tell them why you have removed their names? Even that is like pulling a bad tooth out of somebody's mouth. So painful. They've gone to resurrect all these moribund dead parties. They've gone to find money for the founders to resurrect the parties, and they've all come into IPAC. And as soon as something is discussed, we used to agree by consensus in IPAC, then they'll activate their ghost parties, and they'll say let's vote. And then because they have about 13 parties that were dead and have resurrected, it's only Jesus Christ I know resurrected, but parties too resurrect in Ghana, and they'll say let's vote, and then of course they'll vote, and then they'll go back and collect their little pennies from the powers that be. So the process has been flawed, but as Democrats we've not been willing to disrupt the constitutional process and the democratic process. So we've protested at every point, but we have gone along. We have sent our people to the printing of ballot paper. You saw recently excess ballots, 1 million excess ballots. How did that happen? And then you have to burn 1 million excess ballots. I mean, it's either malicious intent or is sheer incompetence. It's one of the two, but knowing the kind of electoral commission we've had, I wonder how it could have become so incompetent overnight, so that is that. But what will actually determine is the D-Day and after. What happens on election day? We're hearing all kinds of rumors. Already we have people in the armed forces. We know the deployments they've made in the Volta region, and we don't know what they are deploying all those soldiers in the Volta region for. Maybe to intimidate the people like they did during the registration exercise. We know the issue of Western Togoland, you understand? The Western Togoland guys who went and put sand on the road, the Sogakope road and other things. They are not the proper Western Togoland. What's the man's name? Efo, the old man. I forgot his name. They are not Efo something people. This is an instrument of national security. And so they tell them what to do and, show them what to do. We have intelligence that on that day, they will attempt to disrupt things in the Volta region. And if they do, it's because national security wants to suppress the votes in the Volta region. And so that is one. They come up with flashpoints and say that the flashpoints in Ghana are over 4,000. Kwesi, when have you heard about 4,000 flashpoints? Even in my time, I remember there were hundreds. I was chair of the National Security Secretariat. And so we get reports from the National Elections Task Force. We always set up a task force that has national security, the military, customs, and everybody there. And then they do the planning for election day security. In my time, I remember there were, I don't remember the exact figure, but I don't think there were more than 500 flashpoints in the whole of this country. Suddenly, this election, the election task force declares 4,000 and something flashpoints. And the point is, when you declare a place a flashpoint, you must indicate what the threats are. Ballot box snatching, interference by political thugs. There are several things that, a fear of ethnic conflict. There are several things that can make a place a flashpoint. But I haven't seen any such description of why we have 4,000 and something flashpoints. Is it to prepare our minds for some things that they intend to happen in those places, And so accepting the results depends on before the processes, the processes before, the processes during the election, and the processes after. We have come through the processes before, they were flawed, but we have gone along. But D-Day is going to be critical. What happens on D-Day if people are intimidated, ballot boxes are snatched, people are, beaten, shot, and things, that will indicate whether the election, is an election that must be accepted or not accepted. And even after D-Day, if there are funny things with the transmission of the results and all that, that is what will determine. I mean, who accepts an imperfect election? Who accepts a flawed election? Nanado himself has a history of not accepting any elections, even when they've been the best free and transparent elections. He went and tied me up in court in 2013, for almost a year, contesting the results of the 2012 elections. When Professor Mills beat him, he refused to concede to Professor Mills, and he's never conceded elections, even when the elections have been good. If the election is free, transparent, and fair, and it's peaceful, and I'm convinced that the results have not been tampered with and everything is okay, why not? I'll accept. But if it is flawed, and on the day you go around, if they do what they did in Ayahuasca West, who expects me to accept a result like that?
Your Excellency, thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much for your time and all the explanations that you have given. Well, listeners and viewers, we've been talking to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, former president and presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. We actually broke into his campaign tour of the Northern region and are speaking to him from the Marian Hotel in Tamale. Thanks to all of you for allowing us into your homes, your cars, and so on. It's been a pleasure talking to His Excellency, and we do hope that all of us have gained something from this conversation. Bye-bye to all of you from Pan-African Television, from Power FM, from Ahuto FM, from all the outlets which picked this conversation. Bye-bye to all of you. Bye-bye.
What did the pharmacist say?
Grandma, he said this medication too is not covered under the NHISO.
Oh, are they destroying the National Health Insurance too?
No worries, Grandma. In the NDC's People's Manifesto, John Mahama says if he wins, he will provide free primary health care for all.
That's interesting. Tell me more.
Oh yes, under this policy, any Ghanaian who visits the district hospital, clinic, polyclinic, or the CHIPS compound with malaria, hypertension, diabetes, fibroid and so on will be treated for free, whether or not they have an NHIS card.
Really?
Oh yes, Grandma. All you need to enjoy